and the party begins.
Platinum Weddings, 4 to 5 p.m. only on UBC TV.
Good morning, viewers. Business Today is the program that you are watching, and I'm your host, Dennis Sigoa, on this 28th day of July 2017. The last Friday of the month is here, and in the next week we'll be starting the last quarter of 2017, and this takes me back to what resolutions people make at the beginning of the year. If you have not achieved 3/4 of what you had planned to achieve in this new year, in 2017, then just know that your time is up. So we'll be starting business today at least 9 minutes past 9, and we do have a couple of stories from the international context, local, regional, and obviously what matters most is what is happening in the country. Dennis Sigoa is my name, and Business Today is the program that you're watching. Uganda Revenue Authority registered a shortfall of 458 billion shillings in the fiscal year 2016-2017. The revenue body collected 12,719 billion shillings against the projected revenue of 13,177 billion shillings, says Doris Okol, the Commissioner General, URA.
We had revenue foregone, if we can call it revenue foregone, as a result of the GDP alone of 236.69 billion shillings. And this accounts for 236.69 billion of the 457.5 billion shortfall. Within the shortfall, 388.16 billion comes from customs alone, and this is as a result of lower than expected growth in import volumes.
However, compared to the same period in the last financial year, URA registered revenue growth of 13.26%. The shortfall in revenue collection is attributed to lower than the projected economic growth, lower than expected growth in private sector credit, and a constrained aggregate demand, among others.
One of those figures that I would like to point out is petroleum revenue. We had a significant drop in the amount of growth of volumes in petroleum alone. And petroleum wet cargo, as we call it, wet cargo is our highest our highest revenue earner for international trade taxes. But it was projected to grow at 9%. We actually only saw growth of 1.5%.
With many of the tax policy measures for the current financial year being revenue-reducing measures, the Commissioner General is already pessimistic of hitting the 15 trillion revenue target set by government for the 2017-2018 financial year.
The tax-to-budget contribution in the last concluded financial year was 62.26%, meaning that tax revenues are contributing just over 60% of our national budget.
According to URA, it will require a deliberate and concerted effort from all stakeholders involved in revenue collection to achieve the target. Dennis Sigoa and Yvonne Juna for UBC Business.
There was lower than expected growth in private sector credit, as I mentioned, significant depressed growth in private sector credit. And this lower demand for private sector credit affected trade volumes, particularly in the manufacturing and wholesale and retail and construction sectors, which are the main revenue generators, both for domestic taxes and international trade taxes. For example, import values in US dollars were expected to grow at 9.1%, but registered a growth only of 7.1% during the financial year. Since most of the companies and businesses depend on credit to conduct business, make investments, and pay taxes, reduction in private sector credit affected their profitability, leading to a shortfall of about 197.15 billion in corporation tax alone. We show a table there showing the sector profitability of the top 5 revenue generating sectors. Financial services sector grew at 6.58% in 2016-17 as compared to 53.99% in the previous financial year. The manufacturing sector grew at 11.5% compared to 24.83% in the previous financial year. Information and communication sector actually witnessed negative growth of 37.2% compared to a bullish growth of 67.89% in the previous financial year. We see some improvement in growth in the wholesale sector, growing from 11.8% to 29% in the last financial year, and significant growth in the construction sector from a negative growth of 2.79% to 46.78%. The third factor of constrained aggregate
That was your the revenue sorry, the Uganda Revenue Authority, their performance for the year 2016-2017, and they said I was there and interacted with the Commissioner General, and she said that the target they have been set for the new financial year, that is 2017-2018, is a stretch target, because remember they failed to hit the target by about 458 billion shillings, and this time round they have a target of about 15 trillion shillings. So they think a multi-sectoral approach will be necessary to enable them meet this or beat this target. We go on to our next story, which is the World Bank Africa Economic Report. And why we're using this Africa report is because you've heard what the URA Commissioner General has talked about, the issue of why they never achieved their target. And definitely in the last couple of, a few weeks ago, World Bank also released a report where they say that in general, the African economies have slowed down, but they expect that within the end of this year and the beginning of next year, most of these African economies, especially in the sub-Saharan region, will rebound. Let's look into this story or report from the World Bank.
Sub-Saharan Africa is projected to grow at a moderate rate of 2.6% in 2017 and somewhat improve towards 3% in 2018. This timid recovery is certainly better than the 1.6% we had in 2016, the lowest in a decade, but it's still below population growth in Africa. So our continent is still experiencing a negative per capita growth.
One of the challenges for the region is to be able to boost investment, both public investment and private investment. And we are making a case that public investment needs to increase in Africa because of the vast development needs of the region. But public investment will not be sufficient to meet these investment needs, and we need to crowd in private investment.
Our countries need to strengthen and deepen the macro and structural reforms to sustain growth in the long run. These reforms would have to include the strengthening of institutions for private sector growth. And that's why the special topic of this pulse is on infrastructure in sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa trails all the other regions, all the developing regions in terms of infrastructure performance.
Notably, we find that in over 20 years, electricity generating capacity has been virtually unchanged. This is at the same time that other developing regions have seen rapid increase in electricity generating capacity. And although access to electricity has doubled in the region at 35% access rate, that is quite low compared to other regions. And we know that electricity is a major ingredient, is a critical ingredient in supporting development.
Yeah, that's the report, the World Bank report 2016-2017. And we used that clip that we got from the World Bank recently, and they were discussing about issues that you've just heard from the Commissioner General Ure about the economic slowdown of most of the sub-Saharan African countries. Remember the previous week, most of the stories we did were on agriculture, the dairy sector, and last week we centered on the ICTs and banking and the financial sector. I think this week on Friday we are actually looking at the economic status of Uganda as a country and the region as a whole, and that is what we are working on, and that's what we are putting on air this morning on Business Today. Dennis Sigoa is your host, and from to look at the clock, we're 20 minutes into the program, and we move on to another story, and this is about the private sector. Also, we're talking about the economy, what they think where the economy is heading to. We have the Gideon Baragawa, the executive director, talking about the status of the economy right now. Definitely, you move around, and what you hear from people, what they are saying is that the economy is not doing well. And really, I personally, as a business reporter, I've been interacting with the business community, and everyone is claiming they don't have money. And if you move around, and you can see what has really been happening. Big shopping center or malls like Nakumatt, you enter Nakumatt, and you're wondering what is happening. They have closed so many of their branches in Kenya. That tells you that the problem is not only in Uganda, but looks like it's a it's a regional problem. And the other thing, you move around, you see the banks being, the revenue performance of the banks really going down. You realize every business person is talking about a slowdown. And you look at, we have obviously had a economic projection, a growth projection, where the government expected our economy to grow in the 2016 to grow for about 5.9%, 5.9%. But unfortunately, the GDP grew by about 3.9%. Of course, it was reviewed upwards from the report that was produced by the International Monetary Fund. So you can see how it has been, the economy has been performing. And now let's look at this story done by David Matovu, and it's about the private sector and their take on the economic status of Uganda.
The World Bank Economic Update 2017, launched yesterday, indicated that Uganda is underperforming by nearly 50%, less than the projected growth rate for the financial year 2017.
We see the same challenges this year: poor revenue collection performance and some overspending in the
private sector contends that this is partly caused by the failure on the side of government to implement proposed policies that can stimulate productivity of the private sector and the SME segment.
The inaction from government, everyone is sitting back, no decisions are taken, everyone is waiting for the other one to take a decision, and at the end of the day, everyone is waiting for the president to start an action. I think these lullabies must stop.
Gideon Badagawa, PSFU's executive director, says that rather than government focusing on fiscal remedies, policies like Bubu that can stimulate productivity of the private sector and SME segment would rather be given priority.
If we are going to fix this economy, we can't fix it from the monetary side. The central bank is like a fire brigade. It comes to put out the fire. That is the monetary policy. But inflation, which is the fire, has to be fought from the fiscal side, the supply capacity, your supply capacity. are you producing, or someone else is producing and filling out your market?
He made the remarks following the 12th Annual Trade Expo, organized by PSFU and other sector players to engage government and private sector with information that can stimulate economic growth.
Everything that we are actually looking at in the Trade Expo is about how do we make it easier, better, for any business that wants to establish, but also to run as fast.
A lot of things are happening in government, but the populace does not have the information. So what better way for us to be able to engage the public than at the Trade Facilitation Expo?
Since March 2017, Uganda's economy is stunted at the growth rate of 2.5% rather than the projected 5%. Effective triangulation of approaches is needed to return the economy back to its feet. David Matov and Dennis Sigoa for UBC Business.
Thank you, David, for that story. Like I hinted earlier on, we are talking about the economy of Uganda, the economy in the region, the regional economy, and what is transpiring. Just know that you've heard about on the last beat of the story, where they say that from March the economy has stunted at about 2.5% growth, and we had projected at 2.5. The government had projected 5% to 6% economic growth. Then that tells you what we're expecting at the end of this year. That means that definitely there's an earlier projection that our economy in the year 2017-2018 will grow by about 5.9%, actually from 5 to 5.9%. And we are already into the new financial year, and you can see really things are not looking good. It looks like there is a slowdown, and the slowdown definitely, whether we like it or not, will have to impact on our projections. And you know, the fact is, when you talk about a slowdown, basically it is based on a research that has been done by the World Bank, and obviously we also have statisticians in Uganda who are also monitoring what is happening. You're aware that Uganda Bureau of Statistics has a monthly report on inflation, while the same as Bank of Uganda. We have sometimes two press briefings per month. They give us an update of what is going on in the economy. And we'll be moving on to another story, which is a soundbite. It's a soundbite. It's just an excerpt from the press briefing that we had. And this is also about the World Bank again and their take on Uganda's economy. Let's look into this.
Every time we announced we listen to the announcement of the budget. It has been good news because we see efforts to try and stimulate the economy, efforts to try and address some of the most binding constraints to growth so that we can have better and accelerated performance of the economy. But again, we see the same challenges. This year, poor revenue collection performance, and some overspending in the current budget, but most importantly, the under-execution of the development budget. We also think that the strains that have been in the economy since we saw a very big macro instability in 2011, 6 or so years ago, have continued to constrain private investments. So when you look at the accounts, actually private investments are not doing that well. And you can't have growth if private investments are not taking off.
Uganda does need the private capital to address its infrastructure gap. Most countries can't rely on their own fiscal space, on their own revenue. They need to engage the private sector, and that's accepted.
The PPP committee has now been established, it's in place, and it's working. The government is in the process of finalizing the PPP guidelines and regulations. So therefore this report provides an insight on how government can potentially nurture the public-private partnerships to address this infrastructure deficit.
Yes, that's a take from the World Bank, and like I told you earlier on, we are talking the economy, but we'll be moving on to another story on a lighter note. Basically, this is about modern construction. Stakeholders in this industry lately, they have been trying to adopt, to look at greener they say to go green as far as construction is concerned, putting up of buildings. You are aware in the Western world that most of the houses are not built by blocks and bricks that you see out there, but have gone into materials that can be used that are economically, they're friendly, environmentally friendly, and slightly cheap, easy to fix, and also if you're probably trying to move from one place to you can as well move with your house from one location onto another, because it's all about fixing, removing, its screws and bolts and nuts. And apparently, what we are aware is that most of these buildings are very, very strong, and that's what the Builders Yard and some of the stakeholders in this sector have been trying to do. They are trying to entice, especially the youthful generation, the upcoming architectural students. Some of them, most of them that are in the tertiary institutions, to try and to get more knowledge, to try and with getting this knowledge, they are also going to entice the public to adopt this. And there was a competition that started like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and there was an inaugural event, not an inaugural event, but the grand finale where some of the students who participated were awarded. Let's look into the story, and when we come back, we'll go into a short commercial break, and we continue with the program. Business Today is the program you're watching, and I'm your host, Dennis Sigoa.
Housing needs for Kampala's urban dwellers widen daily, with many surviving in squalid conditions and slums. With this fact on their mind, the framers of the university's Students' Architecture Competition set out to challenge innovative youth to draw designs that provide an economic housing solution with modern technologies like prefab.
The young people are very creative, okay? Very creative. They are new, they're open to new technologies, new ideas, and they'll push the limit of design.
Judges scrutinized 12 submissions from students of 4 universities: Makerere University, Uganda Christian University Mukono, Nkozi, East African University, and Chambogo. The winning team of 3 from Uganda Christian University Nkozi emerged winner to take home a cash prize worth 7 million shillings from the event sponsors, Builders Yard.
Fabricated steel, it's a new building, it's a new method of construction and having to do with detailing so that our project could actually be constructed. That was another challenge, because we
second group, or the first runners up, managed to get a price of $1,000, and then the winners, who are from Uganda Matters University Nkozi, managed to fetch up to a tune of $2,000.
Builders Yard has offered to construct the winning design with newly introduced technology like smart frame at Uma Showgrounds in Lugogo for public demonstration.
The model will be ready and available for show during the independence celebrations for this year.
David Matovu for UBC reporting.
Hello, well, this is your boy Aziz Bafana, and I use AfriCell social bundle. Why? Others charge you 500 shillings for the daily social bundle, but AfriCell only charges you 200 shillings. The others only give you WhatsApp, Twitter, and Facebook. But AfriCell has all these, including Snapchat, Instagram, for free. For me, to be in touch with my fans them, I use AfriCell's weekly social bundle, where I get 600 MBs. That's 6 times more than what others give you. Don't let others cheat you. Only on AfriCell.
I'm living proof that even with HIV, I can live a healthy, productive life. And that's because I began taking my ARVs the day I tested HIV positive.
I still run my business like normal despite being HIV positive. That's because I immediately started taking ARVs the day I tested positive.
The day I tested HIV positive, I began taking ARVs to protect our baby.
Don't give HIV a chance to weaken your body. Ask your health worker to start you on ARVs the day you test positive.
Business Today is the program that you're watching on this 28th day of July 2017. I'm your host, Dennis Sigoa, and we move on to another story now. Now this one also touches a bit on the economy and savings. The Torch Awards by NSSF Torch Awards were held recently, and we were there to package the story. So I can read the intro. Government is engaging with stakeholders, among them the National Social Security Fund, in ensuring that most of the working population in all sectors of the economy saves for the future. While gracing over the 2017 NSSF Torch Awards, the Prime Minister, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, underscored the need for the society to embrace pension schemes. Cheer Uganda, a non-government organization which offers support for the rehabilitation of children with physical disabilities, won the 2017 edition. The first runner-ups in different categories walked away with a check of 15 million shillings each. Let's have a look at this story. It's a lighter story, a lighter note. As I was hinting earlier on, these awards were launched in 2012, and they're meant to help institutions and individuals who are playing a very critical role in helping the vulnerable in our society.
The National Social Security Fund has awarded and recognized institutions and individuals that have transformed communities and made a difference through various projects. The 2017 Torch Awards attracted 220 entries, and for the first time since its launch, journalists were also recognized. Launched in 2012, the initiative is meant to spur socio-economic development and also support the less privileged in Uganda's society, says Richard Byarugaba, the Managing Director, NSSF.
This initiative is there to relieve the communities in which we do business. We know that not all our business comes from Kampala, and that's why we have this regional affair. So, thank you so much for those of you who are waiting today for participating and honoring it. Thank you, the judges, for making sure that you use the right criteria. As I tell everybody, we try and keep it totally independent of NSSF, so we don't have any influence on the winners. We just give them a criteria, and they've got to work with that.
This year's edition of the Torch Awards was held at the Kampala Serena Hotel and was graced by the Prime Minister, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda.
And we believe that it's an initiative which hopefully adds to the community. Every morning, I go into my office and I am sure about two things. That I will receive a letter from a job applicant, and I will receive at least one letter from an individual or an organization out there that is looking for help from the NSSF about one cause or another. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I felt that it was almost impossible for my very limited team in the HR department and also in the marketing and communications department to go through these applications and figure out what would be the best project for us to assist.
The Premier lauded the initiative and encouraged the public to embrace retirement benefit schemes, which he said will help solve the problem of poverty in old age and also contribute to the socio-economic development of the country.
The government fully supports the work and the performance of NSSF. And there is no doubt that government will continue to support NSSF. But let me also point out that you heard from the figures given by the chairman or the MD that NSSF caters for 1.7 million Ugandans. That is a figure worth noting and
Currently, NSSF serves only 1.7 million of Uganda's working population, a figure that's wanting, argues Premier Ruhakana Rugunda.
What is happening to the rest of the Ugandans? It is imperative that government and indeed all institutions concerned should ensure that as many Ugandans as we can are safely secured, especially during the latter days of their lives. Many of our people remain vulnerable, especially in old age. Government, therefore, will do whatever is possible, working closely with the experts in the field, and definitely with NSSF, to ensure that this state of affairs, where many of our people, especially in old age, remain vulnerable, is tackled and tackled effectively for the benefit of all of us.
The sector is constrained by the fact that the NSSF Act does not allow us to offer social security services to people, companies which are beyond 5 individuals. So what needs to happen in the law is that if you have the law that enables other schemes to come in, but in tier 2 and tier 3, but allow NSSF to also collect money from individuals who do not currently contribute because they work for 5 companies.
The NSSF Torch Awards is a commitment by the organization to ensure that in pursuit of business, growth and profitability, it bears an obligation to promote the social and environmental well-being of the communities in which it does business. This report was compiled by Dennis Sigoa, UBC Business.
And thank you, Roena Kajumba, for being part of the program too on this day. Unfortunately, she's not with me here on Friday today, and she's not feeling well, but hopefully she'll be around on Monday, and I'm expecting to be with her on Friday next week for this program, the Business Today program, Friday edition. We'll be moving on to a feature story, and this is about agrochemicals. Over the last couple of days, I've been in Pallisa. I was trying to document an agrochemicals project that has been taking place here, there. The Ministry of Internal Affairs and UNACOH, an agriculture-aligned non-government organization, have established a National Poison Information Center to be hosted by the Directorate of Analytical Laboratories, that is DIGAL. With a toll-free line now in place, the public can access information on different aspects of poisoning and their quick remedy. This was disclosed by Kefa Kateu Kuchana, the director DIGAL, at a meeting with farmers and agrochemicals value chain stakeholders in Pallisa municipality. Let's have a look at this feature story on agrochemicals. Smallholder farmers continue to face many challenges of pests and diseases.
This weed is a parasitic weed. For it parasizes only cereal crops like maize, sorghum, millet. Once you put the seed of cereal crop in a field where a striker and mother seed, he has multiplied to just sprout
very fast.
And the seed of this weed can stay in the soil for 50 years. So it can maybe pretend as if it is not there when you are putting maybe cassava or when you are putting beans, as if it is not there. But once you put maize, millet, sorghum, or G-nuts also induces it to.
Crop production in Uganda involves the use of a range of pesticides in considerable amount.
Is a warning to my people who come here. Danger. Danger means kochoite mamilo muni togolo estovalo ikelo kusetelo. That don't enter in this house because this is a store for pesticides, keeping the pesticides strictly out of bounds for the public. Don't allow any person to come in here because it is a place where I keep my pesticides. And it's extremely out of bounds. But for you as my visitors, you are welcome. And see what is inside.
Otim Richard, a farmer in Pallisa district, had grappled with the pests and diseases over the years, which adversely affected his production and income.
This one is my box, a lockable box where I keep my pesticides. And I am the one having the keys. Nobody else in the family except I has the keys to this box. I'm going to open it and see what pesticides are inside there. This one is an empty, should have been out. This one is the wettable powder. This one we use it for protecting my fruits like cowpeas, beans, even some of my avocados. I protect them using this one here. It's the wettable sulfide called the Winner 72 wettable powder, WP. Here I have also this problem of the armyworms, which attacked our maize, which attacked our sorghum. You have to get this one and try to protect my crops. This one is called the magazine. The magazine 500 is one of the one which I spray on my garden of sorghum.
The situation has, however, improved in the last 4 years, and he credits it on the Uganda National Association of Community and Occupational Health, UNACOH, Pesticide Health and Environment Project.
I am a trained UNACOH farmer, and in my training I got a lot of knowledge from my teachers who used to teach us how to be very, very careful about the pesticides. This one training I took almost 4 years. 4 years. And I even got a certificate awarding me that he has mastered all the technology that the pesticide require. And at the same time, after getting that knowledge from my people who trained me, I brought this knowledge down to my neighbors. I have also been going around home to home method, trying to tell them how to use these pesticides and how to care about themselves. Not only themselves, but even the environment, even the animals, even the goats, even chickens, and so on. That's what I've been trying to go from home to home to help them also understand.
Now, in its fourth and final year, the Danish-funded project has engaged various stakeholders at national level with an intention of scaling up the best practices in the use of agrochemicals.
So in addition to working with the farmers, we work with the other categories who belong in this chain of the agrochemicals. We work with agro-input dealers, we work with the VHTs who do health promotion in the community, we work with the extension workers who teach these farmers about the different agronomic practices, but then also work with different health facilities since there is so much misuse of the chemicals as poisoning agents, so many suicide cases in the community. So we deal with different health facilities to see how these different cases of pesticide poisoning can be managed. The PPG project primarily has been working in 2 districts, Wakiso and Pallisa, that's the central and the eastern part of the country. We've done so many trainings in the community level among the different categories I've mentioned. Farmers, we've trained over 300 farmers, we've trained over 300 health workers, over 80 extension workers, over 70 agro dealers, and roughly around 80 VHTs looking at all this health promotion in the community.
And I think the project has been very useful in the way that our farmers have now known how to use pesticide and the dangers involved. And in case of any poison, they know where to report and how to handle those cases. But it's unfortunate that the project is ending. Having built that capacity, we need to continue from there as a department. Now that we have the structures in place, we have the extension workers, we shall ensure that the knowledge imparted on them is also continuously imparted to other farmers. But we think the project has been very, very, very good. it has created a big impact, because before PHE project came to Pallisa, there were so many cases of misuse of pesticides, to the extent that cases of both deliberate and accidental poisoning from use of pesticide, misuse of pesticides was very common.
UNACOH and its partners will in the coming years focus their resources and attention on enhancing the sustainability of the PHE project's achievement, says Agri Atuhaire, the project coordinator. With the partnership of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Directorate of Analytical Laboratories, the agriculture-aligned NGO is facilitating the establishment of a national Poison Information Center to be hosted by DIGAL.
There is intentional and unintentional. The people, you find themselves coming into contact, he has not used the protective gear and he comes. We have got an MOU with the UNACOH, and this one is because they're using us as a laboratory to do the surveillance of some of the residues in the products. Now we carried out a study of the residues in fruits and vegetables, especially tomatoes. So this is one of way of disseminating the results back to the communities and showing them that, look, there is a problem here. If we misuse the agricultural chemicals, we have got a problem here. So that's the MOU. And we're working along with them, because even UNACOH, through an MOU, it has assisted us to revitalize our National Poison Information Center. Now we have got a toll-free line, which we have activated, and soon, hopefully, that we can now launch it. That every poison cases across the country, if somebody is calling in that I've maybe swallowed something like this, then we have got a database which we are soon to acquiring from South Africa, that it has got all the poisons and also the antidotes. So it is going to help the people, the common people. And it's a deliberate government now position that we have to go and sensitize the masses about some of these problems which affect the community.
What we are pursuing is that every chemical that comes into the country, when they are labeling, to have a toll-free line that in case someone gets a problem with this chemical, they can call. Currently, this center is in the Directorate for Government Analytical Lab, that is legal. We've already acquired the different software, especially the AfriTox database, to be able to access the different poisoning information for the different cases that may come in. We have a toll-free line that people can be able to call in and get help. So it's something that we are pushing to get sure that also the Ministry of Health takes it up, that people, in case someone gets a problem with a chemical from anywhere, they have this number they can always call and be guided. And of course, in the long term, we look at this also linking it, let's say, to kind of the ambulance system in the different health facilities. If, let's say, a farmer calls from a certain community and has a problem with a chemical, which nearest health facility where we have an expert we can be referred to, including, of course, even the private sector health facilities.
By building the capacity of farmers in the different aspects of safe use and handling of pesticides, the farmers have improved their yields and averted many agrochemicals-related problems.
Even in animals, because animals we used to use acaricide. But in crops, we were facing a lot of problems in production, because we have pest in granules, we have pest in maize, and in different crops. But farmers have to use pesticide in order to get something from their gardens. And but we are using them, but we're not using them properly. As much as pesticide has positive effects to increase production, I know the production slightly went up for those who use the pesticide correctly, but the project mostly was concerned with the negative effects, averting the negative effects of pesticide.
These international markets, they are very, very, very serious and key to monitor the sanitary conditions of the exports. So our exports definitely, they go into the scrutiny of making sure that they don't have any pesticide contaminants to export to the EU. They don't have these pests and diseases, and those are the conditions of these markets. So we have to comply definitely we have to comply. If you don't comply with these international requirements, then you can't export. So our Ministry of Agriculture and the other agencies of government, definitely they are now coming in to make sure they sensitize the people that they must not misuse the agrochemicals. They must observe the withdrawal period, that when you spray, you must wait until the product is degraded by the plant or by the fruit before you harvest. And this is the case. Even in other cases, but not only for the export. For us, our internal also, we must make sure the quality which we use in the country. Whatever kills somebody outside here also kills us. So internally, government is making sure that the food products are safe. Food safety is very, very important.
Dennis Sigoa for UBC News in Pallisa. Yes, you can see I was also there trying to create a rapport with the farmer community. You've heard about the issues of agrochemicals and their side effects to the economy of this project that has been taking place for the last 4 years, which is coming to its end. But the good thing is that it's not necessarily coming into its end, but they're going to scale it up to about, from the 2 districts of Wakiso and Pallisa to about 22 to 25 districts. But this case, you've heard they will be trying to follow up on their achievements and also try to sensitize the farmer community on the best agronomical standards, and also the best standards, the best way of handling agrochemicals. So that is it. Let's hope very soon we're going to have this hotline, the toll-free number that will be launched. It's already active. I think next week on Monday we'll have the number, we'll have the number here for the public, for the viewers, and even the launch of the toll-free line will also cover it. So we'll be moving on to next. It's an intro bite. It's about the insurance sector. Britam Holdings PLC has launched an asset management company in Uganda as it seeks to extend its asset management offering in the region. The new company, Britam Asset Managers Uganda, is modeled along a similar successful company in Kenya. It will offer investment management and advisory services to pension funds, insurance companies, corporates, government-owned entities, and retail investors in Uganda. This was disclosed by Kenneth Kaniu, the Chief Executive Officer, Britam Asset Managers Kenya. That was at the Serena last evening. Let's have a look at this. And then when I come back, I'll be signing off on this Friday, 28th of July, 2017.
I think a large issue that we want to address is around how to increase the general level of savings in the country, and to try to introduce the development of a savings culture in as far as Ugandans are concerned. There was a question earlier, or a comment around the general macroeconomic environment, which was not seen to be good. Interest rates are going up, inflation seems to be going up. And inflation is the biggest enemy of investments. Inflation it tends to act as a weevil. It just erodes the purchasing power of your funds. So our first objective is to make sure that we have introduced a savings culture in Uganda to ensure that the wealth that is in the hands of retail Ugandans is at least keeping pace with the general level of inflation. And that is the first thing that we want to do. We are looking to introduce mutual funds out into the market, unit trusts, money market funds, and so on and so forth, and ensure that, number one, there's ease of access. Number two, we have invested in distribution, and not just here in Kampala, but right across the country. And thirdly, we're able to provide a level of investment return that matches inflation. So some of the trends that we are seeing are around evolving models of distribution, where it's not about the customer coming to the asset manager, but it's about the asset manager going out to the customer. So as an example, piggybacking off what our sister company has done in distribution from the point of view of the tied agents and the financial advisors, we're very keen on developing a network of independent financial advisors that we can work with throughout the country. We're very keen on developing a mobile strategy in as far as onboarding customers for asset management is concerned. And we're also very interested in going digital and exploring online capabilities in as far as distribution of asset management products is concerned. Those are global trends that we have seen out there in the market. We have seen them in Africa. We have seen them continue to develop in Kenya. And certainly those are capabilities that we want to roll out here in Uganda as well. There's also a strong focus on alternative investments around infrastructure investments, things to do with energy and so on and so forth. And really we would want asset management in Uganda to be seen as a force for good. There's no reason why pension funds, as an example, with the huge pools of liquidity that they have, there's no reason why they should not be the ones who are funding the constructions of roads, bridges, airports.
That was Kenneth Kanyu, the CEO of Britam Asset Managers Kenya, and he was talking about the Britam Holdings PLC launch of an asset management company in Uganda as it seeks to extend its asset management offering in the region. It's 9:59 and coming to the end of business today on the 28th day of July. Why I'm mentioning the date is because very many people tend to forget the date, and I think it's very, very important. It's a Friday, and as I always say, I always talk about it on a Friday. Friday quite often is a day that you tend to have so many accidents because people get done with work, pass by somewhere, have 1, 2, 3 more drinks, and on their way home or wherever they'll be heading, they tend to maybe end up in accidents and things of those sort. So on this Friday, I wish you a very safe and healthy day, and I'm glad that you've been part of this program right from the beginning. That was 9 a.m. to now. And as a parting shot for the day is that I thank you for being part of the program. Business Today is ending right now, but next we'll have some entertainment. So for those ones who like to dance, it's your time. Thank you.